Well, hi there, and Happy New Year! Thank you for joining me for the first edition of Telile 24/7 for the new year of 2021. I'm your host, Adam Cook. Later on in the show, you're going to hear from two representatives of the Lake Biosphere Reserve Association talking about how they'd like municipal councils to continue supporting their efforts to preserve the lake. And speaking of municipal councils, a common theme you're going to find running through a lot of the items this week on Telile 24/7 is common ground between Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. Those two areas have started holding municipal council meetings again this week, and you've noticed that while some are holding them virtually and some are holding them in person, there's still a lot of common threads between Richmond and Port Hawkesbury at this time. For example, consider our first item on this week's Telile 24/7. It's all about post-secondary education. In a couple of moments, you're going to hear how Richmond County responded to a request from the president of Cape Breton University to support some new infrastructure happening at the Sydney campus. But before then, we're going to talk about the Nova Scotia Community College's Strait Area Campus and how the campus uses a piece of land in the joint industrial park shared by Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury for one of its courses. That led to a request to both the town of Port Hawkesbury and the municipality of the County of Richmond to consider allowing some of that land to be used for a course that the college usually offers at this time of year. Let's take a look and see how Richmond County reacted. The county had received a request from the academic chair of the Strait Area campus in late fall. The request from academic chair Lawrence Boyd asked that the county consider approving a 5-year lease for use of a portion of land in the joint industrial park co-owned by the county and the town in Point Tupper. The land has been used in the past for NSCC's heavy equipment operator course, which usually takes place in the fall, but is now slated to get underway this month. However, in previous years, the use of the land has been done by shorter terms, and this time around, a 5-year term was requested from the college, which brought some skepticism from a couple of councillors.
I guess maybe like the CEO pointed out, was a 5-year term. Seems to be a long term, maybe longer than the 4 of us sitting around or 5 of us sitting around this table. So I would recommend, I can see them on a 1-year term being, pretty tight with moving stuff in and out, but I would have no problem issuing a 2-year lease.
Would need more information before I would commit to a longer term lease for sure. I think, especially since that commission hasn't met yet, I know because I'm on it. So I just feel like that may be a conversation that needs to happen there as a starting point. But if the town has agreed to some form, then they've at least agreed to a year. So then I would say, let's agree to a year and then see where we go from there.
At the same time, Councillor Melanie Sampson acknowledged that the situation is different for Nova Scotia Community College this year, given that the heavy equipment operator course normally runs in the fall, but has been pushed ahead for this year.
They're hoping to resume the field training in mid-April, and so I don't know that we should assume that it will only go till May or June. There would be some programs at the college that would go into the summer. Like it's a different type of. It's not a core program. It's a customized program, so it's different.
After receiving confirmation from CAO Don Marchand that the lease for the previous heavy equipment operator program had expired on December 20th, one day before the last regular council session for Richmond County, Deputy Warden Michael Digdon was ready to launch a 1-year lease in conjunction with the town of Port Hawkesbury on the understanding that the heavy equipment operator program should go ahead this year.
I'm okay with a 1-year term. Let them get back, Obviously, they're sitting there waiting on us, so there's no need to hold up the school. If it's between us and the town of Port Hawkesbury, I'm sure the town of Port Hawkesbury already agreed to a minimum 1 year. Mm-hmm. So I would say we go to 1 year, and then by that time the committee should have hopefully met.
Warden Amanda Mumbercat applauded her fellow councillors for taking a cautious approach, recognizing the need to proceed with a short-term lease, but also seeking more information before committing to anything longer.
I think we're all going to be a little bit cautious as brand new councillors about jumping into anything very long term right off the bat. I think we need to collect some more information and maybe get some more information about the programming needs from the academic chair who provided the letter. And so I think once that's done, it's something that we could revisit in the future.
While acknowledging her role as NSCC's innovation lead that she took on several months before considering a run at municipal politics, Warden Mumberket suggested that she was excited at the possibility of a strengthened relationship between Richmond County and the Strait Area campus.
I'm a little biased, I guess, but I think NSCC is a really great community partner. They're an important part of not just our educational community here, but I think our economic community as well. So, I will be looking forward to strengthening that relationship going forward. I know that the new principal at the college has been interested in meeting with new councils, and so we'll be looking forward to, like I said, strengthening that relationship for sure.
Staying with the post-secondary education front, Richmond councillors also recently addressed a request made last fall by the president of Cape Breton University, David Dingwall. Arriving with a delegation from CBU at November's meeting of Richmond County's Committee of the Whole, Dingwall asked for support for the university's proposed new Discovery and Innovation Centre. And at December's regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council, Deputy Warden Michael Digdon presented a resolution that offered verbal support for the concept of the new centre, if not financial support right away.
I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that the following resolution be adopted. Whereas CBU's science building is more than 50 years old, with aging labs and infrastructure once used to educate the parents and the grandparents of Cape Breton's youth. Whereas CBU is enabling the growth of Cape Breton's population for the first time in more than 20 years and needs modern, state-of-the-art research and teaching facilities to continue recruiting local, Canadian, domestic, and international students to study in Cape Breton. Now therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of the County of Richmond fully support Cape Breton's university efforts to establish the Centre for Discovery and Innovation.
At this stage of the game, President Dingwall was looking for, a demonstration of notional support for the idea of the new centre. And, based on the information that he presented here at Council, I think in our very first meeting, we were happy to provide that.
Even with a campus based in Sydney, Warden Mumberket echoed CBU President Dingwall's sentiments that it's not hard to see the impact of the recent influx of international students at the university, and to see that impact happening all over Cape Breton Island, not just in the CBRM.
But all you had to do was take a drive around rural Cape Breton Island these last few summers to see the impact of the community outreach program, the shuttle program, as we commonly refer to it. We saw international students working in places like the Bredor Lakes Inn, working in places like Cabot, and all these different tourism attractions across the island, and hospitality industry in particular. And that's an industry that is particularly challenged by trying to attract people to frontline positions. So it was a case where those students need the work, but they didn't have transit. We had we needed the employees, and so the connection with CBU to bring those two pieces together, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You could see the impact immediately on the hospitality and tourism sector.
Now, you might recall that in that report there was some discussion about the joint industrial park that's shared by Port Hawkesbury and Richmond County. Well, that's one of the areas in which the two sides hope to find some common ground in the weeks and months to come. Shortly after being sworn in for the second time as Port Hawkesbury's mayor in November, Brenda Chisholm Beaton stressed about how much she would love to have Richmond Council join the town for discussions on areas of common ground, not just the joint industrial park, but even having full-blown joint council meetings between Richmond and Port Hawkesbury. So, following the most recent regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council in December, I decided to ask Warden Amanda Mumberket what she thought of Mayor Chisholm Beaton's ideas. Here's her response.
I can tell you there's no plan. We've been in the chairs for about 8 weeks, so it's going to take us a little bit longer to develop a really concrete plan, but there definitely is a desire for us to be more proactive on the development side, not just in the Joint Park, but also in Point Tupper and throughout the county. The municipality has some great assets and some really great talent, not just at the council table, but also at the staff level, and so it's time for us to harness that and really look at what are the assets that we can bring to the table for future development opportunities, and the Joint Park is right up there. Even throughout my campaign, and we talked about strengthening our partnerships with other local governments, and those would include the town of Port Hawkesbury as well as the Village Commission, Budleduck. That's something that we're really interested in. I can't really make a commitment on that at this point, but it is definitely going to be a desire of ours to find ways to work more collaboratively together. The Joint Park hopefully will be one example in the near future. One thing I'll point to right now is the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health effort. I mean, we're seeing that pay dividends, and that's truly a regional and collaborative effort by all parties.
Another area of common ground between Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury is the need for more affordable housing development in the local region. This week, the town is launching an online survey to ask its residents what they feel are the main housing priorities for Port Hawkesbury. And at the same time, Richmond Municipal Council is holding a key committee meeting that will help determine the next steps for a planned affordable housing development in Arishat. Let's take a look and see what has led up to both of these moves for the town and the county. At Port Hawkesbury's latest virtual town council meeting held last week, councillors approved the launch of an online survey to gauge residents' views on what should be done to address housing issues in the town. The survey, to be conducted on the SurveyMonkey website, comes as the town is planning to strike a citizens committee to look into housing issues, with the hopes that the survey's results will help the committee to inform the town on what residents really want to see in terms of housing. Meanwhile, in Richmond County, this could be a pivotal week for the progress of an affordable housing project that's been pitched for the Arishat area. The proponents of the project came forward to Richmond County with a request for a water and sewer extension that could help launch the project. However, after referring the matter to the independent consulting firm SRT International to get a look at potential costs for water and sewer extensions for the affordable housing project, some councillors were concerned that existing municipal policies might be too vague to give them enough freedom to properly spend on projects under a certain amount.
A, the policy is not clear in terms of that, and B, we don't have one for projects under $500,000 in each of those categories.
As a result, this discussion will now move to Richmond Council's Bylaw and Policy Committee, which is slated to meet this week. The move makes sense to Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat.
Right now, the developer's been working primarily with staff to determine a path forward. So I think once we get through this next piece around the policy development, like I said, then that'll be the time, I think, for us to be engaging with the developer on what's, discussion around what's in the best interest, right, of everyone concerned.
The discussion on the water and sewer extension arose in earnest at the council meeting on December 21st, after Isle Madame Councillor Sean Sampson confirmed with Public Works Director Chris Boudreau that the costs for a water and sewer extension for the affordable housing project resulted in estimates ranging between $570,000 and $709,000. When fellow Isle Madame Councillor Michael Digdon asked the Public Works Director if the cost could come down by Richmond County doing its own in-house engineering on the project, the director replied that the county doesn't have the ability to carry out such an extensive project on its own.
We're not staffed to be able to do detailed engineering like that. You have to do survey work, you have to do detailed design. So generally, if we take on a project, we hire a consultant to do detailed engineering. And before that, we'll often do a pre-engineering if we need more reasonable cost estimates to apply for funding. So this doesn't meet the criteria for pre-engineering. This was essentially a look, a general lay of the land distances. If we were looking for funding, we would look for something a little more detailed than this.
So there's still quite a bit of discussion to be had before construction could begin on an affordable housing development, and before council could even consider approving financial aid in whole or in part for a water and sewer extension. But the warden is not all that surprised by the cost figures that have come back from the independent consultant, and she's upbeat as the discussions on policy surrounding water and sewer extensions for the project begin this week.
I wasn't really surprised by those numbers. I think, anytime you're going to invest in that type of infrastructure, the cost, it is going to be costly. But our main concern is to make sure that we're developing strong policy around it, to make sure that we're protecting everyone's interests, the developer, the county, and the residents, of course.
We'll have more areas of common ground for Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury in the near future. But right now, we'd like to share with you a recent presentation that was made to Richmond Municipal Council's Committee of the Whole. It involved two members of the Lake Biosphere Reserve Association. You're going to hear, for the most part, from the chair of the Board of Directors for the association, Eileen Crosby, but you'll also see that she's accompanied by Gordon Kerr, a St. Peter's resident who is also part of the association. Here's what they had to say during the December meeting of Richmond County's Committee of the Whole.
There's a lot of misunderstanding out there about what the biosphere is, okay? And so I think one of our problems is right there in the title is the word reserve. And of course, reserve, let's box it off and fence it off and whatever. And that's not the case at all. So let's just run through and find out what it's about. Okay, so they're really very beautiful areas. We're very fortunate to live where we do. And they're beautiful areas, and we consider people part of the ecosystem. When we talk ecosystem, everybody thinks about beavers and foxes and fish and everything else. But we're part of an ecosystem as well, okay? And so we're right there. And really what a biosphere is about balance. Balance between the needs of the environment and the needs of the people living in that environment, okay? And that is really key, that whole word about balance. Some basic quick facts. There are 701 biospheres presently worldwide, and that's in 124 countries. There are 18 of them in Canada, and of course our biosphere designation was back in 2011. A typical biosphere, no matter where you go in the world, there's three parts to it, okay? And they're very simple. A core area, a buffer area, and a transition area. And a core area is basically, we have three objectives as a biosphere, or any biosphere around the world. And these three areas kind of look after that. So often you hear about conservation talked about for biospheres. Okay, we're going to protect species and so on. And that happens essentially in the core areas and the buffer areas as well. And the buffer area is not quite as strict. And in the transition areas where you find mostly the people, okay? And I'm probably thinking that most of you have been maybe to Moncton, the city of Moncton, and you've been to maybe Fundy National Park. Now, if you kind of think of the map of New Brunswick and put it Moncton and Fundy National Park, and put a big area around it, that's a biosphere as well. So you think, can a city be in a biosphere? Most definitely. And there are many throughout Canada that have cities in them. So we sometimes think it's someplace out in the country. We don't happen to have here in Cape Breton in our biosphere a large urban population. But a lot of the biospheres have large urban populations, and they would be in that transition area. So the other thing about a biosphere is that, as beautiful as it is, we don't have any kind of authority, okay? We're not a protected area. We're not a bureaucratic level. We're not a government. We're not national park, okay? We are really a body that helps to facilitate in an area for the three objectives, which I'll get to in just a moment, okay? And so they're learning places to learn how to live sustainably with nature so that we don't ruin where we are living. You know, we keep a good, clean house, I guess you say, but not necessarily spotless, but a nice, clean house. And so here are our objectives, and very simply they are conservation of species and resources in our ecosystem. 2, sustainable development using best practices, a sensible balanced approach. And finally, community capacity building, which is really just talking about the people in the community, the talents they have, and the resources of that community, okay? So in conservation, basically, this happens in the core and buffer areas. So again, you don't think of, I use the city of Moncton, which is in a biosphere. You don't think of Moncton being a conservation area. But yet, when they do their municipal planning or whatever, those things are in the back of their minds. You know, how do we handle this situation or that situation, okay? I want to get to the second objective, and that is sustainability. And so sustainability in a biosphere is basically the ability of the economy to support a defined level of economic production indefinitely. So not just the generation that you're living in, but the generations that will follow. And to do that, you want to make a decision in your sustainable development planning that your environment is protected or it's healthy, your society in which you live, your community is healthy, the culture of that community is a healthy one, and of course the economics of that community or the economy of that community is a healthy one as all. And this we consider to be the 4 pillars of any biosphere. Now this slide is just throwing in an example of, in sustainable development, trying to find the best practice, the best way of doing things. So this is just a little example of, for example, controlling stormwater runoff by having adequate setbacks, filtering stormwater runoff, and retaining natural vegetation around the periphery of your water sources. And making these sensible kinds of decisions is keeping your water source clean. Whoops, I went backwards, sorry. And the other thing you're doing is you're helping to protect areas that are beyond your urban areas. And in our particular biosphere, these are 4 areas in particular that are protected. Now, protected doesn't mean we build a fence around it. It just means that we look at keeping maybe in heavy industrial development in that area away from it. But it's not, we basically educate and help people to make decisions that are right for the area. We're not going to say you can or can't do this or that or the other thing. It's using best practices in your community planning or municipal planning. And finally, our third objective is building community capacity. And as I said earlier, it's taking the people in your community, utilizing their talents, and taking your community resources and really building the strengths that you have in your community. And that's what we like to promote, okay? And we can promote that through research, through education, through monitoring. And we try to facilitate this through community organizations, but kind of joining forces with them and helping to develop communities that have diverse culture and diverse economies. And of course, that all goes to building a better community overall in your families, business, industry, conservation, tourism, that's a big one. That's something the biosphere is really trying to branch out and talk about sustainable development in this area, not anywhere around the biosphere, not just Richmond County, but completely all the way around. And we really want to work on that over the next couple of years and develop sustainable tourism. And the big thing about UNESCO is that it's an internationally recognized organization, and you have experts and you have a network of information, help, whatever, that you can utilize through that organization. So it's not that they are controlling in any way. It's basically you've got a resource that you can go to. Plus, you've got that label that you can utilize, especially if you were developing tourism plans for this area. You're in a UNESCO biosphere, and so that in itself, and of course, Gordon here was very much involved with the road signage, and you've seen that. And so all of that is very beneficial. And basically, I think this just says here that what we are, we're just an organization, we're all volunteers, it's a charitable organization. We promote best practices throughout the biosphere as best we can and like to work with other community groups to do that. And we maximize any educational resources we can get our hands on. leverage national and international networking. So there are other biospheres in the country who have tried different things. They have good ideas that possibly we can utilize, or from other biospheres worldwide. It doesn't matter. There's a network out there that we can use. And we deliver related projects through our members. So we have different committees on our board, and we have a trail committee. The signage committee has done its work. We had a climate change adaptation forum last year. Recertification, because every 10 years, every biosphere has to go through this process where they give you a 43-page document, and Gordon's going to take it from here and tell you all about that. Not the document, but the...
Madam
So,
Morton,
Gordon,
Councillor.
could I ask you? Yeah, thank you.
There. Madam Morton, councillors, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time, and I'll be brief. We convinced UNESCO that this area here, the watershed of the Bador Lake, deserves to be a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve because the people here try to live sustainably with nature. And one of the documents that we included in our initial submission was the Richmond County Integrated Community Sustainability Plan, which is eerily similar to the goals of sustainable development for a biosphere reserve. And all the municipalities, all 4 municipalities have these plans. And you also have the climate change adaptation plans that you're working through, you know, so kudos to Richmond County. So regarding the misconception of biosphere reserves, the Fundy Biosphere Reserve in New Brunswick with Moncton in the center. Moncton is the fastest growing city in New Brunswick. The Manicouagan Biosphere Reserve in Quebec has an alcan smelter right in the middle of it in Baie-Comeau. You know, so don't be afraid about biosphere reserves stifling development. UNESCO gave this area the designation of a biosphere reserve because we were able to demonstrate to them that it's a good place. So I'd just like to give you quickly a little bit of background. 10 years ago, while we were doing massive community presentations to convince people that it would not stifle development. The original board was seeking broad community support, and Richmond County Council insisted that they should have a position on our board. So we modified our bylaws to allow that to happen, and we gave positions to all 4 municipal councils on our board. And shortly after that, Richmond County resigned from the board. So every time there's an election, we go back to the municipal counties and offer them the opportunity to be on our board.
It wouldn't have to be, I mean, I'm assuming everybody here has a day job and that they're doing this as community service, right? For the most part, I mean, that's usually how it works. And
Yes, it could be.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so definitely.
And just a reminder that you can hear more of the Bador Lake Biosphere Reserve Association on the Telile 24/7 podcast. Check out all 5 of our recent podcasts on our new Telile podcast channel, soundcloud.com/Telile. And there will be a new episode coming later this week, so make sure you tune in for that. Right now, let's return to Richmond Municipal Council's recent discussions. You might recall that back in November, there were concerns raised by Councillor Sean Sampson after the District 1 representative attended the Remembrance Day service at Branch 150 in Arishat and heard the sound of all-terrain vehicles during moments of silence that were supposed to be happening during that ceremony. Well, it turns out there has been some follow-up on this issue. Councillor Sampson himself and the Director of Public Works for Richmond County, Chris Boudreau, have been doing some investigating on how to prevent this sort of thing from happening in the future. Let's hear where that conversation went at the recent regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. Councillor Sean Sampson originally raised concerns about the issue at the November regular council meeting for Richmond Council. Municipal councillors decided to allow Sampson to continue to investigate the situation on his own, but they also pledged to contract the Provincial Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, or TIR. Public Works Director Chris Boudreau made that contact, And here's what Warden Amanda Mumbercat had to say about what Boudreau found from TIR and the discussion that followed at the December regular council meeting.
Questions were, is the request for specific locations? If so, what are the locations? The second question was, is the request for temporary closure for the entire duration of the ceremony or only for the moment of silence? And the third is any part of the ceremony to be held within the road right-of-way, or is the request being made to eliminate road noise?
Yeah, so I can't speak for other councillors, but when it comes to locations, specific locations, of course, I would be speaking of the Branch 150 Legion in Ayrshire. To answer the second question, when it comes to the closure, I spoke to a Legionnaire member, Benny Murray, on the weekend, and he informed me that the laying of wreaths and moment of silence is usually about 25-30 minutes, and then there's a reception afterwards. So we would only be looking for that ceremony, more or less, not the reception part of it, so 25 or 30 minutes would be enough for sure, right?
You know, typically I would say, yes, it should be for all locations, but I am aware of the fact that there are limitations to who would, so we're just looking for perhaps permission from TIR to engage in perhaps volunteer fire departments or other organizations like that to do these road closures. I mean, I think we need to be a bit clear on that because we can't expect staff of TIR to be doing these road closures, right?
No.
So I think that may be something we want to be clear about, is that the branch of the Legion would organize the proper individuals to enact the road closure.
It wouldn't be, the responsibility of TIR, I don't think, but I spoke to the volunteer fire department here on Amadam, and they would have no problems doing that for us or for the Legion members. And I wouldn't suggest or recommend or think for that it would be TIR's staff that would do it, but I think it's easily done through fire departments or volunteers that would just
The actual traffic control portion.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Our CMP and fire departments
Right.
have tended to do that in the past, but you do need the permission
Yes.
through a permit from TIR
That's right.
to do that. So I think we've answered a couple of those questions. The request is for specific locations, and we can have staff list the cenotaphs. Is the request for temporary closure for the entire duration of the ceremony? So yes, but not for the reception afterwards. Is any part of the ceremony to be held within the road right-of-way, or is the request being made to eliminate road noise? Honestly, I'm not sure I fully understand that question. Yes, Councillor Sampson?
I think they're asking, would they be marching
Yeah.
on the street? Would they be
Right.
whatever? And I think that, I know that I went to 3 ceremonies and all of those were not
No.
utilizing the roadway.
So it's road noise. Yeah, okay. Councillor Sampson?
just to confirm, it would be road noise, exactly.
Okay, so we can provide those answers then to Chris Boudreau, and that will allow him to take the next steps.
We all know that it's been a difficult year for the local business sector during the year of COVID-19, and that's why 2 municipal councils have adopted shop local policies that were recently prepared by the Cape Breton Partnership. At the request of Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, Town Council's most recent virtual meeting, held last Tuesday, included the adoption of a shop local proclamation that was put forth by the Cape Breton Partnership. This proclamation held similar wording to another Cape Breton Partnership proclamation that was adopted by Richmond Municipal Council just before Christmas. Here's Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat reading the full text of the proclamation.
Whereas the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic has affected the commercial sector worldwide, including locally in the municipality of the County of Richmond, to a point where long-term effects are yet to be understood, and whereas a number of our local businesses have experienced challenges this year, and supporting local businesses in our area is key to making opportunities out of these challenges, and whereas every dollar we spend locally this holiday season will have a positive ripple effect on our own economy for years to come. And whereas in response, the Cape Breton Partnership's launch of the Cape Breton First campaign, encouraging residents to shop, stay, and eat local during this holiday season and into 2021. And whereas every dollar spent on island contributes to a better Cape Breton for all. Be it therefore resolved that the County of the Municipality of Richmond declares from today, December 21st through to the 24th, 2020, as Shop Local Days here in the municipality of the County of Richmond, and we encourage everyone to support your local businesses.
While the Shop Local proclamation received unanimous consent, the issue particularly hit home for District 1 Councillor Sean Sampson. He works in the food delivery industry, and even in the year of the pandemic, he has seen Cape Bretoners support their own.
When comparing sales up in the Shittycamp-Badek area to last year's sales, if we can believe it or not, sales in October were up this year versus last year in Shittycamp and those places, simply because Nova Scotia and the Atlantic Bubble supported our area and supported the colors of the Cabot Trail, whatever. So it's I think it's great, and yeah, supporting local is where it's at for sure, especially during these difficult times.
It was really great to see the support from the councillors, and you know, Councillor Sean Sampson related his personal experience as well, and what that means for local business when people invest their money back in the business community. And there's no question, when every dollar that you spend in your local community makes such an incredible impact. And so it was again a no-brainer for us to be able to pass that kind of a proclamation. But it's not just a shop local during Christmas, it's a shop local all the time. Whenever you can to support local business owners, because they're the people who support us when we go looking to them for, donations to a particular cause or to sponsor that ball team or the hockey tournament or whatever the case may be. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Following the council meeting, I asked the warden if she feels county residents are stepping up to the plate to support local businesses.
I think they really are whenever they can. The problem is that sometimes you need to go a little bit further afield to find the things that you need, and that's totally understandable. But I've been really impressed with how Richmond County, but really all Cape Breton residents that I've seen really put a focus on shopping local, because it's a really tough time for businesses right now, and so much of our economy depends on visitors from afar, and so it's in all of our best interest to continue to support local like that.
Now, it goes without saying that there's a different feel in the air around the Richmond Municipal Council table as a result of the 5 new councillors that were elected this past October. But I don't think my Telile colleagues and I were prepared for exactly what happened when Richmond Municipal Councillors got together after their council meeting in December and decided to offer this festive message to their constituents. Take a look for yourself.
I would like to extend a warm holiday wish to all the residents of District 1 and to the entire County of Richmond. Ma famille et moi vous souhaite toute la joie, la bonne santé, un joyeux Noël et une bonne année.
To all the residents of District 2 and to all the residents of the County of Richmond, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Please, everybody, look to your next door neighbor, look for those in need, and help anybody out that requires it.
Residents of District 3, myself and my family wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Here's to hoping that 2021 brings good health, happiness, and lots of good times.
So to District 4 residents, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas or celebrate however you see fit and safely with family and friends. And please look out for each other.
To the residents of District 5, just wanted to say a big Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and enjoy yourselves responsibly.
So on behalf of all council and to all residents of Richmond County, Happy Holidays!
Now, some of you may recall that our former Member of Parliament for Cape Breton Canso, Roger Cusner, had an annual Christmas tradition. He would rewrite Clement Clark Moore's A Visit from St. Nicholas to salute politicians and political events of the previous year. Well, Roger Cusner isn't in the House of Commons anymore. He is, of course, the new Canadian Consul General to New England. But another elected official from Cape Breton Island has picked up the torch. He is the brand new councillor for District 5 in Richmond County, Brent Sampson. Here is how he surprised his council colleagues during the last regular council meeting of 2020.
'Twas the week before Christmas, while in Arashat, the new council was hoping to avoid a big spat. Our start to governance was going quite well, for our group's optimism would be hard to quell. We put Ward and Amanda in the front seat. When media beckons, she's quick on her feet. Melanie knows numbers, which made me foresee she'd be a great asset to all District 3. While Michael and I aren't adept with computers, thank God Yvonne is a fantastic tutor. Sean sits across, looking me in the eye. I think he's still shocked that I wore a bow tie. We can't forget Don, who's worked here forever. When it comes to the rules, he's really quite clever. Before writing this poem, I got Cousiners all clear. Merry Christmas to all, and a Happy New Year.
Oh my God.
Well, I can't thank you enough for that, Councillor Brent Sampson. Oh my goodness. I feel like we definitely had the mood lightened. Thank you very much, and I'm glad it's Cousin-er approved.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson, for that very festive touch at Richmond Council's latest meeting. However, I do want to point out that you weren't the only person from Lordways rewriting A Visit from St. Nicholas this year. I was inspired by some local activities that have been happening to replace Christmas traditions that have been cancelled by the COVID-19 pandemic. You may have seen the Drive-In Noel in Isle Madame and Christmas in the Village in St. Peter's, and as well, a couple of special holiday visitors came to Port Hawkesbury, so I was feeling in a rather festive and poetic mood as they drove by my cameras on a special night in December. Take a look for yourself. 'Twas 18 nights before Christmas, and all through the town, folks stood in their driveways. Kids jumped up and down, for the dear old gent known as Jolly St. Nick was making his way to Port Hawkesbury. How slick! Up Reeve Street, down Pitt Street, and along Granville Green, the fellow in red had a companion in green. He was joined by the Grinch, but at this time no cheatin', and in the truck's front seat, Mayor Brenda Chisholm Beaton. They were driving around to spread holiday cheer to kids who had to deal with the pandemic this year. He drove through Summit Park in his protective compartment, flanked by the Port Hawkesbury Volunteer Fire Department, and I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all. Santa is coming to the Strait area tonight." In Port Hawkesbury, for Telile 24/7, I'm Adam Cook. And that wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you very much for joining me, and a big thank you to my colleagues at Telile Community Television, Becky Borineau, Nick Boudreau, and Cora LeBlanc, for their assistance in providing the footage from Richmond Municipal Council's Committee of the Whole meeting and regular meeting in December. If you have any comments or suggestions about future interviews or stories for the show, or you'd like to talk about what you've seen this week or any other week, I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and you can email me. The address is adamjrcook, cook with an E, @yahoo.ca. You can also get in touch with Telile directly. The station phone number is 902-226-1928, and the Telile email address is info@telile.tv. Don't forget that you can follow Telile on social media. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our YouTube channel has every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, as well as our sister Francophone show, Notre Côté, and a whole lot of wonderful programming that my friends at Telile have been putting together over the past few weeks and the past few months. Check it out. You're sure to find something you enjoy. And don't forget to check out the new Telile podcast. That's available at soundcloud.com/Telile. I'm Adam Cook. Thank you so much for joining in. I wish you all the best for the new year ahead and look forward to seeing you next time on a brand new edition of Telile 24/7. We'll talk to you then.